Hi everyone, this is Rion Paper and welcome to my February 2025 currently inked fountain pens. I honestly cannot believe how fast January flew by. I know that there are always kind of two camps. I've heard a lot of people say that January felt like an entire year in and of its own. But personally, I felt like January just went by in the blink of an eye, and we're already 1/12 of the year is already gone, you know? However, that does mean we have a lovely new color palette of pens and inks. For this month, I picked a theme loosely based around vintage looking pens and inks. Well, vintage is probably not the right word, more like retro. Retro in a sort of 70s, 80s, I suppose, color palette that I just sort of have in my head that is mostly like these colors, this mustardy yellow, this sort of faded orange, this orangey red, this aqua green, turquoise color. Those are all colors that I really associate with a sort of retro theme. And that is what I kind of loosely based my pens and inks around. I also took the opportunity to ink up some more sort of starter pens, which is really fun. So yeah, let's dive into it. So the first pen and ink combination is this LAMY Safari in Terra, which was actually the second or third ever fountain pen I got. And it's inked with Colorverse Martian. It has a lovely black extra fine nib that just writes really, really well. And obviously I've only been writing for this so far for a couple of days, but the two things that kind of jump out to me are that one, the writing experience is fantastic. The flow is really good. It's neither too wet nor too dry. I can get these nice crisp lines without having any sort of hard start issues. However, I'm not super sure how much I like this color. I do like a sort of reddish orange, but this one, in some parts, it has a very strong yellow undertone, almost like you have some sort of red ink that you just threw a bit of orange juice into. I don't know what would happen, actually. I've never tried that. Don't do it. But that's sort of the feeling I get. There's this very strong yellow undertone that I'm not particularly fond of, but the writing experience is just really, really great. So that's my LAMY Safari Terra with Colorverse Martian. The second pen and ink combination is this Sailor Prophet Jr. in orange that I've inked with Sailor Manyo Khaki. And Khaki is I actually only have a sample of that I was gifted. I believe Khaki is a limited edition ink. So I just wanted to try it to see if I sort of needed, quote unquote, needed a bottle before it's no longer available, or if I'll just gonna let it pass and just enjoy the sample. And I think that's what I'll do because it's a really, really light ink. However, I do really like the color. It's super pretty. Where, is it called? Yeah, Pilot Iroshizuku Fuyugaki, or Winter Persimmon, is like the outside of a persimmon. Kaki is definitely more of the inside, like the flesh of the fruit. This pen has a lovely medium fine steel nib. It's the simple basic sailor nibs, but I just love how these write. And yeah, together with the other color I have of this pen, they just look so retro to me. Which is funny because those are all colors that I used to really dislike when I was a kid, and now I love them. This is the, well, I was going to say newest edition. That's not actually true, but this is a newer addition to my collection. I got this somewhere during the Christmas holidays, and this is the Pilot Lightive or Pilot Explorer, depending on where you are in the world. In Europe, it's called the Lightive. In Mustard, which is the pen model, is not a limited edition. You can get it year round, but they sometimes come out with limited edition colors. And I've been eyeing a matte mustardy fountain pen with black finishes. And this is just, when I saw this, I knew this was it. I have the Lightive in matte black as well, so I already knew that I love how this one feels, how this one writes. It has the fantastic Pilot steel nibs, which are probably my favorite starter nibs. So yeah, this pen, lovely. And I have inked this up with Inkebara Dandelion. I have a fine nib on this, and the Inkebara Dandelion is quite a nice ink. It's a little on the dry side, but I still like how it writes, with this pen at least. However, I expected it, based on my swatches, to be a little bit more mustardy. I know they also have a color, Inkebara also has a color named Dijon, which is like a true mustard color, which is not as yellow as this pen, but it's actually like, it has that more of that brown undertone. But in my swatches, Dandelion looked a bit more unsaturated, I suppose. Not as like brightly yellow as it does here. However, it's still a nice color that fits in well with the color palette. And then we have the other Sailor Prophet Junior. This color is called Aqua. And I've inked this one up with Sailor Kiji. And Kiji is a Kingdom Note exclusive ink that I got from my sister when she went to Japan last year. I asked her to get 2 Kingdom Note exclusive inks for me that I just like, I paid her for the inks. I was like, if you're there, please get these for me. But then she also got me another one as a souvenir, as a surprise. And I love this ink. The cool thing about this ink is when I start writing with it, it's super blue and it doesn't match the color of the pen body at all. But then as it dries, it gets so much greener, and it ends up as this sort of green leaning turquoise, and it's a lovely ink. And the other cool thing is that I kind of start having a feeling that the amount of greenness in the dried up result really depends on the type of paper you use. So that's another cool thing. I hope you can see this on camera because this still looks very blue, but we're just going to give it a couple of seconds. And it starts looking more and more green. I think on Tomoe River paper, which this is, I think this may even be the original Tomoe River paper, it stays a little bit more blue than compared to like printer paper. Then we have an old favorite of mine, which is the Kaweco Perkeo in Old Chambray. And I love how retro this pen looks, both the shape of the body and the cap, the color combination. I love this. And I've inked this one up with Colorverse Rainy Day, which is one of the Colorverse inks that is sort of part of the standard collection that you can always get, that is not limited. And while I love the color of the ink, this one has definitely been giving me the most trouble so far because it is fairly wet, and especially on the new Sanson paper, this one tends to bleed really badly. But I love this sort of slightly unsaturated, slightly grayish blue color that is still very blue. There's a couple things I really like about this pen, and that is one, that is it is a slightly drier writer, which means this handles my wetter inks very well. And two, this nib, out of all my standard steel nibs, I feel like this one has the most bounciness to it. Like, it feels so much different than all of my other nibs when I write with this, which is really interesting. It's a fine nib, by the way. Look at me having nib diversity this time. No, that's actually just like more or less the same nibs in disguise, because like that Sailor medium fine, that LAMY extra fine, that Kaweco fine, they all more or less have the same line width, which is what I prefer. Then we have another LAMY Safari. This is the cream one. I think it's a 2022 color. Not completely sure. And I think with this one, I've actually made the worst quote unquote match based on the color of the ink. I put Ferris Wheel Press Oyster Hour in this, which was a smart decision in that that is a fairly dry ink and this pen is a very wet writer. So that sort of cancels each other out and the writing experience is just really good. But the ink is a lot more, I don't know, complicated, greenish, grayish, etc. than I remembered. I thought it was like fairly tan, cream colored, but it's not really. I also have a feeling that there was some blue ink. I had never inked this one up before, and I have a feeling that there was some bluish ink from maybe some testing on the nib, because at first it wrote super weirdly. I mean, I like the ink, I like the pen, but I don't like how these colors look next to each other. This one just fits my retro color palette so well. This is the Delta Spaccanapoli in Palazzo Serracasano with an extra fine nib, and I got this one last year when it was released, and I really like this pen. It's an Italian pen, and I also put an Italian ink in this one, which is the color Sepia by Aurora, which is a lovely sort of medium brown, slightly warmer. This was the very first brown ink I ever got. I have a big bottle of it because back then I didn't know samples even existed, but I am so glad that I have it. The Aurora inks, the lineup is very limited, but the inks are fantastic. I love the blue-black, I love the black, I love this brown. They're just really good standard colors. Great flow, great color. Yeah, just really nice. And then the last pen and ink combination is this one I didn't really pick out because of the color palette or to go with the theming. It's just that I got this pen last month and I was really itching to ink it up and try it out. So why not just include it on this page? This is the Leonardo Officina Italiana La Virtuosa, which is the Kaweco exclusive model in the Murano colorway. It has a rose gold trim and an extra fine nib. And I've inked this one up with Gerbin Café des Îles, which sort of matches these brownish reddish spots on the pen. So I hope that you can see the colors well enough in this video, because I was expecting today to be, it is super gray outside. So I thought, you know, there won't be too much like shadows, etc. But the lighting is actually really harsh, even though it's gray, if that makes sense. So the last pen and ink combination is the Leonardo La Virtuosa in Murano with Gerbin Café des Îles. And those are the pen and ink combinations. I would love to hear if this color palette does also remind you of a retro color palette, or if you have very different associations with these colors. Yeah, did you pick out a color palette for February, or did you just ink up whatever you felt like? I know that a lot of people like doing like reds and pinks and all the sort of colors associated with Valentine's Day. I considered that, but I like red, but I don't love pink, and I feel like only red inks would not really match well with all of the different decoration I want to use this month. So I just decided to not really go with the Valentine's theme this year. But I've really enjoyed watching all of the currently inked videos so far. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.